What's up, YouTube? It's Joe Ketchapalia, investing in fractional real estate from the comfort of my couch. Today is Friday, so it's this week's installment of the 52-week challenge. If you're unfamiliar with the 52-week challenge, I do have a video, a playlist, and it's the first video in that playlist. It's just called 52-week challenge. You can see that on my channel. But in general, it's just where I'm telling you what I'm buying each week, and a number of people have committed to doing the same thing, just to stay motivated. You're welcome to join. We just talk about what we buy, why, share some ideas, and you can be as vague or as specific as you want. If you're buying on Lofty, you might not want to give up all the secrets because we affect the price of things on there. But if you're buying on sites like Ground Floor or Saul's Lot or Mogul, any of the other places I'm invested on, you can share freely because the price doesn't change based on other people buying it. Reminds me, please like and subscribe. And in the description to this video, there are links to all the sites where I'm currently investing in fractional real estate. Do your own due diligence on those platforms and on any of the properties you see me talk about. Some of them, even though I spend a tremendous amount of time on them, it is really just me experimenting still. I haven't put a significant amount of money on any of them yet. Significant, really going to impact my net worth. Um, because it is, it's something that I want to play with and explore for quite a while before, I make a final determination of, is this really something that I want to, risk a real portion of my wealth to, right? And so I mentioned that a little bit more specifically today because I have been really getting fed up with Lofty lately, although I am still on here and experimenting quite a bit and still making money. It's hard to picture myself, putting 10 times what I have on there right now, which is what I'd like to do on some platforms, right? I think that there's room to put a lot more money on some of these. And, there's just been a number of things, and I talk about them pretty regularly. Um, I'll do another video about my most recent issue soon, but today I'm just going to focus on what I bought and sold this week, or what I bought. I don't actually always cover what I sold. I probably should because I think I might start winding down a little bit some of my positions. But so this property, it's the first time you've seen me buy this one. You can see the starting price is $11 right now. It was $8.50 when I bought the tokens that I bought. I bought 10 tokens. Just a couple days later, I sold them. Made a good 30% return in a couple of days after all fees. These are the types of opportunities that are just amazing. At the same time, somebody paid $50 for these tokens originally. Um, so you can see this is again Lofty acting as an incredible wealth destruction tool, right? Like, sure, we can make money on it, but it's because somebody else got crushed here. So anyway, not necessarily one that I did a ton of due diligence on. I did some though, because I think no matter how cheap those tokens look, and I know I did a video about this earlier in the week, no matter how cheap they look, uh, they still might be worthless, right? Like, tokens can be worth $0. And so you want to really still make sure there's an asset that the DAO owns, it's worth something, there's not a crazy amount of debt, all those sorts of things, right? So I did a little bit shorter than normal due diligence, bought a small amount of them, sold them very quickly. So there's that one. Um, this is the one that, you've seen me talk about quite a bit, 7014 Raymond Ave. This is the property that I've just picked that I'm going to continue to accumulate a bigger stake in. As I'm telling you that, you can see I do have a sell order for 100 tokens for $25 a token. I don't think there's any chance anybody's going to buy these at 25. My average basis is somewhere around, well, I can actually tell you. Let's see. $20.15. This is including fees. So, yeah, I'm always willing to sell at a decent profit. And, that's almost a 20% profit above the fees, not including the fees to sell, right? If people bought them at 25. Don't necessarily think anybody's going to, but I do always like to either have stuff in the, put the tokens in the liquidity pool if it's not a performing property, or have them listed for sale at a price that'd be a good profit for me. But really, I do that quite a bit when I don't really expect anybody to buy this. I mean, this 2188 is the highest this has been in a while. Well, actually, yeah, this says 2183. Um, 2187. So this is about as high as it's gotten lately. I don't expect it to go higher anytime soon. And we have a tenant um, that maybe we're going to end up evicting again, or a new one that's going to be evicted. I don't know. There's last I checked, the last month's rent wasn't paid, and they were having a hard time contacting the tenant. And who knows where that's gone since then? I certainly don't. But I think that this one for me, there's a lot of value. I did a whole video about this one. It's you can actually just uh, search for this address. I think I have it in the title of that one if you want to look at it. Why I'm buying this one. But so it's one that I'm just really trying to accumulate a larger stake in. I think I own 8% of it now. Um, I'm starting to think that, it doesn't, as much as I want to benefit from, wide diversification, Lofty's just not a good platform for that at all. You just have to stay so active in, monitoring and actually like helping move your property along when different stuff comes up, that it doesn't make sense to just put small amounts in like 30 different properties. Um, it's one that you're going to see my strategy shift a little bit to just buying fewer and fewer properties, and honestly maybe just moving off the platform more, because depending on how this one goes and a couple others, um, I've mentioned quite a few times, it's really easy to make money on here with small amounts of money, like that Gooding purchase and sale, right? That property I just showed you. For that small amount of money, it was really easy to make a very high percent return. But if I had wanted to buy 100 tokens, I would have moved the price too much to then turn around and to sell them and have any real profit. Like it would, because of the slippage in the price. And so, where my goal is to eventually put significantly more money on here, it doesn't really work if that strategy doesn't really work unless they ended up having like 3,000 properties that I could do that with a whole bunch of little ones. But by the time they get that size, there's probably a bunch of other people doing the same thing too. And in the near term, I have to have a strategy that works with putting larger sums of money, and I haven't really figured one out yet. Um, this is the first one I'm really going to try to exert a little bit more control over. I mean, I think the most that I've really put into one that's really worked out well is probably like 2 or 3 thousand bucks. I'd like to be able to put more than that to work on individual properties and not move the price too much. I think, I've talked about Odom quite a bit, and I feel like I was buying too much of that one as the price was dropping, and I ended up having too high of an average price. Now, if we end up selling it the way that we have planned at the moment, I'll still make money on that, but it won't be the incredible returns, and it won't be worth the time I spent, um, sort of moving that one along, proposing votes, talking to people in Discord. And so that's what I think. I'm starting to think that Lofty is not going to provide a very good return on my time as an investment vehicle. And so that's what I'm sort of struggling with lately. There's just always these little issues that come up, and you really have to convince the other members of your group. And so for this one, I'm thinking, well, what if I really like bought up and got to be like a 15% owner, and then maybe get a couple of other like-minded people to come along with me. When the votes for this one happen, I'm already a pretty large percentage of the votes, because there's quite a few people who don't vote also. So anyway, if I can get this one to work, maybe that's a different strategy. But we'll see. So that's another one I bought this week. I buying some LROs on ground floor. I bought, I think, seven. One, two, three, four, five, six, seven. Again, I'm just putting the smaller amount in. I had been trying to put a little bit more in each, but I switched to just doing 50 in each after they did that automatic, or that artificial buyout or payoff of a bunch of them. Um, I just am going to just experiment with the money that I have still on the platform. If you remember, if you saw this a few, maybe a month or two ago now, I actually took a chunk off because they had paid some off artificially and I wasn't able to reinvest. And so that's all it is. So again, I'm still just on here trying to get wide diversification, buy a little piece of every single one that comes up. I do expect to, over time, start to be a little bit more discerning on ones that I kick out based on how things have performed for me so far. But I am up to 83 loans already again. So, if I can get to that, over 100, over 150, and they don't start just force paying them off again, maybe I will start putting more money on this platform again. Um, we'll see. I mean, so so far I haven't had any performance issues. Like all of them have closed. I had 17 that were extended, but none that have gone into default, and all the extended ones have already paid off for me. I don't think I have any open and extended, right? Yeah, they're all performing. So like the products are working. It really threw me off when they just were like, "Oh yeah, we know you have all these loans outstanding, but we're just going to pay them off." Like it just took away more than half of my diversification and whatnot. I know you've heard me complain about it a lot now. So that's all the LROs I bought. And I figured I'd start talking about when I'm staking, adding to my staking positions, because it is kind of like, not staking tokens, but actually like just adding USDC. So that's one of the things I did a little bit more of. I added a little bit to this one. I already had some some USDC staked in this pool, but it is, it's the same property. Um, I know a lot of people talk about like, well, when you stake USDC, it's like it's like shorting this property, but you're not. And I think the math doesn't exactly work that way, right? I think that it's what we're going to see. So there hasn't been a whole bunch of activity in it, but it had a very, you know, um, unbalanced USDC side, and so I gotta, you get like a big. Um, I don't know, like a bonus for putting the money in. And then this payment here, I think actually is from somebody pulling their cash out and paying a penalty to the other stakers that are left in there. I believe that's what happened there. I'm not 100% positive. Um, but anyway, so I put some more in that, and I think this is one of the things I talked about where I'm really trying to experiment with owning more of a property, and then when I do that, combining it with, so you can see I have I've got those staked there, but then I also have, 87 staked here, which is why it showed up on the other one that I only owned one. It was one plus the 100 that I have listed in the limit order plus the 87. That's the whole interest that I have in this. But so I can't stake any more tokens there. Um, but I don't know. So I already had some, but I added some more, especially because it seems like when somebody else pulled their funds out of the pool, it's a good time to put some in. I mean, I'm never going to be able to take it out without penalty unless you get some balance. But one of the things that I think can happen, one, that Oracle's moving down closer to this price. And so I think that that will help create some balance. Again, now, I'm not an expert on the pools whatsoever, but I also think as the price moves up, we'll get more sellers into the pool. Even though selling moves the price down, as it becomes a more attractive property. See, I don't know. I mean, adding USDC side pushes the price up. I don't really know. It's a little bit beyond me, but it is why I'm just trying to experiment, playing with this a little bit. Um, Basically staking both sides of the pool and owning uh, a larger amount of the property. And really, it's a property that I expect us to be able to either turn around, or if that never happens, um, be able to sell it for a good profit because it seems like it's there's a decent chunk of equity there. And then the only other thing that I put money into this week is this 918 Frederick. Again, I didn't buy tokens. I just put money in the pool. I did a video a couple weeks ago about this. I had staked in this pool and then took it out fairly shortly after, and made a decent return on it. Not a ton of money, but it was the beginning of me starting to really experiment with these pools again. Um, and so somebody else took a bunch of money out again in it. So I had an alert set up, and so I could tell that happened. And so then I just went ahead and put more money in, and so it's just really interesting to be, how many of the USDC, pool tokens you get relative to what you're putting in. I mean, it doesn't mean I'm going to get this much money out, but I think it is an indication of like I just own way more of this pool than I should for $300 basically. I have it up here. So yeah, I mean, there's only $535 in that pool, and 300 of that is from me. So I think that that's kind of if there's significant trading, which there hasn't been a lot. There was when I put it in the first time, there was enough that made it so I could take some out. But anyway, That's the only other thing I put money in this week. I didn't buy anything on Mogul. Um, I think I'm going to put a little bit more in the Yugo, but I've decided to wait until uh, it's a little bit closer to selling out because we get the you don't start getting a return until it's closed and operating, and so I'll juice my returns a tiny bit by just waiting, right? And so I'm going to do that. There is another. Well, I'm going to do the mogul video after this. I'm not going to mush them together, so I'll talk to you about that in a minute if you watch that one too. And then didn't buy anything on Sol's Lot just because they're supposed to have a new one out, but it doesn't seem like it happened yet. And so that's it. So let me know what you bought. Like and subscribe if you haven't. Do the thing with the bell. And there should be some videos that pop up. One of them will be the playlist for the 52-week challenge. So if you haven't seen that first video to understand why I'm doing this, you can go ahead and click on that.